All right, well, good morning. Hey, welcome to Central. It's a good day for this, right? Sun's shining, we're all here. Fantastic. I'm faced the wrong way. Just playing. Hey, if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Rory Christensen. I'm excited we could hang out and do this for the next bit. A few minutes or so, maybe, 3 or 4 hours, something. No, joke, I kid with it. We're smack in the middle of a series. We're 4 weeks into a series that we've called Weird Because Normal Isn't Working. And like I said, if this is your first week, welcome to it. This is a good week to get in on it. It might be one of those things where you want to hit our online resources, hit our website, download the previous sermons, and get caught up if you want to. But I'll say this just by way of getting us started. With this series, what we're doing is we're trotting out these key areas of our life, areas where if you get them squared away, your life feels squared away, and if they're not, your life is not. And what we're saying with this series is oftentimes where we go to get them squared away, the normal way we're pushed and we're driven either by culture, where we're just kind of pressured in that direction, or by our mentors, the people we've seen in our life, they went that way, so we kind of go that way, or because we're just naturally wired to just kind of go at it that way. What we've noticed is the normal way of coming at this isn't bringing the sort of outcome we want. And if that's the case, then what we may be called to do is chart a different path. A path that the watching world will look on us and go, man, that looks a little bit weird. Or maybe a path that it's just different to us. And so we hit it and we go, man, this feels weird to us. That sort of thing. And so welcome to this series, Weird Because Normal Isn't Working. And whenever we hit our subject today, I think we put our finger on one of those key areas. Whenever you talk about you get it squared away, your life feels squared away, you don't, it doesn't. Welcome to one of the hot buttons, and we're going to have some fun with this one, right? It's the subject of money and finances. How do we get this one squared away and get some traction on it? Just you tell me on that. And I think our starting point for it, there are a number of ways that we could kick it off. I want us to kick it off this way. There's a story in the Bible that just kind of lays it out for us and helps us understand some of the dynamics in play with this. And this may not be the first place you run to get some traction in the area of finances. That's cool. Just hang with me. And notice what's going down, right? Because you go to Luke 12, and there's a story that just kind of lays some groundwork. Book of Luke, one of those books of stories about Jesus. The whole book's about him. Off to the right side of a Bible, if you pick one up, there you go. And in it, Jesus, master teacher, is doing his thing. He's teaching a crowd of people, and it's out of that context that this guy comes up to him with this really normal sounding request. I mean, this just feels like something we've hit with our life. He comes up to him and he says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Tell him to do it. You got some authority. You do it. You tell him to do this. You got this guy come to Jesus because he really wants something from him. He's going, you know what? I got this need, and I feel like this can meet that need. And some of you, this isn't very far off from a situation you've actually been in, where someone in your family's passed away and you found out that even though there may be a will written, that still doesn't mean knives don't come out, right? Teacher, tell my brother, and there's a reason for that. We'll get there, right? Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. And Jesus replied, man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? And then he said this, and he's striking to the core of what he's seeing, and I think he's striking to the heart of the issue we face in getting this whole thing squared away so our life feels squared away. He said, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. I wonder what that looks like. Life does not consist, he says, in the abundance of possessions, right? So you back away from those verses, and what you notice is this guy coming to Jesus with this really normal approach, a really normal way that we come at the whole idea of money, because we all want to be happy and content and feel at peace with our lives. We just want that. We want happiness, bring more of it. And we get the feeling somewhere along the way that there's this connection then between happiness and money. And so we're going to move toward money in that desire that we have to be at peace with our life. And so we're going to kind of add it in. I just say we work under this sort of assumption that there is some sort of connection between happiness and money. And by the way, this is something we're all going to agree on in the room. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. I could stand up here and try to argue that there is no connection between money and happiness. Even if you agreed with me, though, you'd still inwardly come back to, okay, fine. Money can't buy you happiness. I just like to try it once, though. Okay, like, could you just, like drop a load of cash on me and just let me try it out? I just love to give it a go. $1 billion sounds like a whole lot of fun. Let's just give that a try for a couple of months, and I'll come back and report on it. We all think there's this connection between money and happiness. The question is, what is that connection? What is that connection? How do we go at that and find that? See, here's my thing. The problem isn't with the belief that there is a connection between happiness and money. The problem is with where we typically go for that connection, what we say that connection is. Because oftentimes that connecting point comes in this four-letter word, more. This four-letter word, more. And we believe that if we have more money, then our happiness is going to increase. And even with the example I brought, like, hey, if I have more, then my happiness is going to increase. And the problem with that assumption is where it leads you. This past week, I was reminded that we actually have a representative, some sort of image that we can go to whenever you trot that word more out there and the way it really functions in our life, and especially when you attach finances to it. If you open a Percy Jackson book, if your kids read some of those teen books, they popularize Greek mythology, or just go to the Odyssey, all right? Get neck deep in Greek mythology. You'll read about, and I know you do this all the time, get neck deep in your Greek mythology, boom, connecting with lives right now. This is how you make friends and influence people. You talk to them about this sea monster by the name of Charybdis, right, that lives in the Straits of Medina. Is that right? Where am I at here? Right? Charybdis, you've got Charybdis and Scylla. They're on one side, and the other side, the Strait of Messina. There we go. And if you're sailing through there, the trick is to not get too close to one. It's going to gobble you up, or get close to the other. It's going to suck you in. And on the gobble up and the suck in side of it, it's like literally between a rock and a hard place. The one that really draws you in is this monster Charybdis. And the thing that gets me about this one is usually whenever they do an image of it, it's this big whirlpool. And so you start to get close, and all of a sudden, before you know it, it's sucking you in. But it's not just that. It's that if you really want to get at the heart of this monster and why it's so scary, you get to the fact that Charybdis is this monster that has this insatiable appetite, and it never goes away. It isn't like, the Charybdis has a 2-ship limit, like you're sailing by, and like as long as you're the third ship and you just let those other two kind of beat you a little bit, 1 ship, 2 ship, I'm good to go. She'll shut down. No way. Insatiable appetite. And because of that, this monster is freaky. In other words, right, if we can just put it on there, this monster gives us a living representative of the word more. It's something that has more at its heart. And what you begin to realize is there's something in that word more that isn't going to bring us what we desire. Charybdis reminds us that at the heart of the word more, it's pointing us to an appetite. And appetites are never fully satisfied. They're always going to come back and come back at you. See, and if you back away from that, you already start to get some traction on this normal approach we take that goes to more, because that normal approach drives us in a direction it's just unproductive. And you find it in this question. Just how much money is it going to take for you to find the happiness you're after? This is where more starts to look a little bit more like a monster, right? How much money? If money brings happiness, how much? How much money gives you that happiness? Where is it? And you go around the room, and all of us have the same answer to it. And we've already trotted it out, right? Doesn't matter if you're low income in here today, just scraping to get by. Doesn't matter if you're middle, upper, lower, upper class. Good grief, how did you get that much money, class? Like, you need to share, yo. You know, doesn't matter who you are. How much money is it going to take to make you happy? Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And before we know it, we're driven straight into the jaws of a monster we can't get out of. Because there's this appetite, more, just a little bit more, and it'll happen. Just a little bit more, and it'll happen. But Charybdis is never fully satisfied. About a year ago, I realized that with my own life in a more significant way. By the time we're done, we'll see the way this hits us in even insignificant ways and develop some strategies around it. But a year ago, I went with my family up to teach a graduate class at a college in Prince Edward Island, Canada, up there, and we were hanging out, and it's during that I had this experience that just, it messed with my world. There's this mix-up in transportation, and I've told some of you about this, where the rental car the college was going to provide for us didn't come through. We're supposed to get a minivan, you know, because I brought my wife and my kids with me. I wanted them to have that experience, right? And we didn't get the minivan. What did we get? They're like, well, is it okay if, you know, we give you this, you know? And I walk outside, and there I was. I treated this image of a brand new blue, beautiful, four-door Jeep Wrangler that I'm pretty sure was put together by Jesus himself, right? You know, we're walking up to it, and I'm just going, oh man, my testosterone is just growing. You know, the closer I get, you know, I get in it. You know, you're just driving going, look, me, man. Me drive Jeep, you know? It's just like, it was this vibe I had. And for 5 days, man, I was living the dream, you know? There it was. And man, let me tell you, it did something to me. I'm coming home, and before, man, I got a car and a minivan, you know, and they're just fine, you know? You own them free and clear. What more could you want? Reliable transportation, right? That gets you from point A to point B. Yeah, but it's not blue. It's not beautiful like that. Jesus had nothing to do with that one. It had everything to do with this one. And all of a sudden, I was finding that I needed a little bit more in my life to make me happy, right? And you look at that and you're going, okay, I think we've all been there, and we certainly have. But here's the question, where does it stop? Where does it stop for any of us, ever, really? You get that, and pretty soon that's just real life. You know, that's just normal life. That's all fine and good until I get to drive a Corvette, right? And then I need that because, hello, testosterone. You know, it's just, oh, there it is. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? And all of a sudden, as you start to peel the surface layer back on this, what you begin to realize is our normal approach to finding satisfaction, peace, and happiness in this area isn't the one that actually gets it done for us. And so, one of my favorite illustrations of this, and I always come back to it, is this, that, you know, Psychology Today did a massive survey, 200,000 people, which is just a crazy sample size, and found that in America, 74% of us agree with the statement, money's how we keep score. It just is, right? Which, hold on to that too. It just means we're watching each other. And so if you have this, I'm going to need just a little bit more to get there, right? And yet, you go to the Forbes magazine 75th anniversary edition and start thumbing through the 570 page. I mean, it was a monster they put together. Hey, it's 75 years. What topic should we choose for this? And what they decided to write on and to have 11 of their greatest writers probe and investigate is why it is that Americans who have so much oftentimes complain about being dissatisfied, oftentimes complain about being depressed, unhappy. Why is it that we who have so much complain about those things? And what we forget is the heart of it. There's this monster. You drive in there, you're not coming back, and it's not happy. And so how do we develop some traction in this direction? One that maybe helps us skirt that more monster and find a more functional direction. How do we do that? If you go back to Luke 12, you notice Jesus just kind of keeps the conversation going with us. And he says, yeah, all right, if I got you going there, your life doesn't exist in the abundance of possessions. All right, you're starting to grab that. We've got a lot, and yet we still want more. You're not finding the life you're after. You're not getting it squared away yet. He's going, okay, well then let me help you unpack it. And so he tells this story that I think helps us begin to get some strategies that help us walk around, some action steps that walk us around the whole Charybdis effect in our lives. Go to verse 16 and 17, and he gets this conversation started. He told them this parable. It's a story. Right? Story about a farmer. He says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He's this landowning man, right? The ground yielded an abundant harvest. He's from Illinois. He thought to himself, one of the things that amazed me when I moved is just how dark the soil is. Going, ooh, me, man. I'm just playing. All right. Soil doesn't do it, but a blue 4-door Jeep Wrangler. All right, we're back. That does it, right? Ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself then, right? He got huge harvest. Where does he automatically go with his life? You're just going, man, wow, success. That should bring what you want. So he says, what shall I do? Here's his conundrum. And he immediately drives into it. And I think this is so common. He says, what shall I do? I've got this abundant harvest. I have no place to store my crops. What shall I do? I have no place. He's saying no place. And the second he says that, you should go, all right, it's an absolute statement. Absolute statements are never true, which is an absolute statement. All right, this is a little bit of a joke. Thanks for meeting me there, right? All right. I have no place. And you're going, really? Does he honestly have no place to store his crops? What did he do with them last year? Right? There you go. He has existing structures to store his crops, right? And so you're looking at that and you're going, wait, hold on, dude. You got the same barns you had last year. What's wrong with them? He's got the same barns, but now he's got this abundant harvest, and he's getting some options with his life, and he's just going, man, now those barns aren't looking as appealing to him. They're not as inviting as they once did. Minivan, Wrangler. All right, I'm back, right? You're here. They're not as inviting as they were. He's not as content as he used to be with their capacity. He's not as excited about what they can provide for him. And so what you have is this dissatisfaction in his life that then leads to these actions that he's going to take with his life. See, and if you back away from that, what you find is he's immediately showing us a way to process our way around the whole Charybdis effect in our lives, where there's this common progression that we get kicked in our lives. And the starting point are always these two words of awareness and discontentment. Awareness and discontentment. Discontentment, one of the best definitions I've heard just says discontentment's the idea that I'm never satisfied with what I have. Never satisfied with what I have. Why? Because I know what you have and I know what there is to have. In other words, our awareness of things drives discontentment in our lives. And you see this happen without fail all over the place. This is the reason why we stopped letting our girls watch commercials whenever they were this big. And you know why? Time we had cable and we let them, watch some cartoons. You flip over there, but about every, 4 or 5 seconds, they've got another commercial going on, and you know how it goes. If you're a parent in the room, grandparent in the room, you get it. They go watch a commercial, and then they come to us, and, their eyes have been opened. They have been opened now. There are all these things now they need with their life. Dad, did you realize there's this thing, it's like sand, and you can mold it, I need this. I could be a better human being, citizen of. I'm like, you're 4. Like, where are you getting all of these, persuasive tactics? What in the world is going down? And it's all coming out, and we went, whoa, hold the phone. Hold the phone, new strategy here. You can mute that, turn it off, and time it. It's going to be about 3 minutes, then flip it back on. If you're going to do this, those don't happen, period, because all they did, that awareness led to discontentment, which led them to try to get action out of it. This is the reason why we realized early on with our kids we would have to adjust our store strategy. Some of us, it's not our kids, it's us, right? And you know this, right? Either your kids, grandkids, or you've been around kids who walk down a toy aisle in a store and all of a sudden, it's tantrum on the floor. Why? They just saw for the first time. They've just become aware of something they didn't even know existed, and yet now their entire world depends on their acquisition of that thing. What? Really? Right? And we start noticing our daughters are coming up to us, and all of a sudden I'm the bad guy because I'm not going to provide for you something you didn't even know existed before we came here. What? I'm like, no. This is not the way our world operates. No, and so we quickly had to go with our daughters. Look, you need to develop in you the ability to appreciate, to enjoy without feeling the desire to own. You go in that store, you appreciate it. Don't you come to me and talk about, owning that. Don't you do it. For some of us, we're going, yeah, and I know why. I know why, because I know how this has worked in my life. Right now, I am paying off shoes that I no longer wear. I'm still paying on them. In fact, I brought them home and didn't really like them, but boy, did I have to have them. Right now you're paying off a, boat you never drive. You're paying off, you name it, right? You just have to have it. And what was it? It's that awareness that led to this action. Right now, a lot of you are dealing with stress in your life. Why? You sift it down and you're just going, man alive, why in the world did I buy this house? We were just fine in the littler one, But I just had to have it, more space. And then some things shifted and all of a sudden financial crunch. And I'm going, why in the world did I ever think that? Right now some of you are going, well, I could have just recovered the couch. Why did I have to? You're looking at a closet full of clothes and you're going, I have nothing to wear. Why do I have nothing to wear? Awareness. Awareness led to discontentment, and it drove you to action, and for many of us to accumulate debt. Debt that right now is holding us into some serious bondage. We got a case of the gimmies, and that whole idea of more kicked into our life, and all of a sudden Charybdis owned us. And we're realizing that when you pour your life down that hole, down a hole that deals with words like discontentment, dissatisfaction, a hole that looks like just accumulating stuff that then leads you to the aggravation of debt, you realize that there's this hole that isn't bringing me what I want with my life. My life doesn't feel squared away. I feel out of control. I feel like things are happening to me. I'm not making them have it. Like, well, what's going on here? What's going on here? And so with this first little point of analysis, what Jesus is helping us do is find this action step. I just call it beware. Beware of the dissatisfaction that leads to action. Beware of that. Because we know where it heads from there. Learn to enjoy what you have. Enjoy without needing to own, which is so incredibly helpful. First service, I was reminded on the spot of going shooting with some of the fellas from our small group. We're going shooting, and then one of them pulled out a beautiful AR-15, right? Oh my. Happens all the time. And I kept having to rehearse in my head what I just said. Enjoy it. You don't have to own it. Enjoy it. You don't have to own it. You can enjoy it. You don't have to enjoy it. He probably loaned it to you. Like, come on. Right? And there it is. Beware. Beware of this. Watch the way it works in your life. And when it hits, pull away immediately. When it hits, pull away immediately, or you will be owned by it. You will drive right into the heart of it, and it will lead you where you don't want to go. So do that. Beware of the discontentment that leads, the dissatisfaction that leads to action. Go back to the story, and you find, another action step that moves you around this whole Charybdis effect. Verse 18 and 19, this guy, he's dissatisfied with his current barns, their capacity to bring what he wants with his life. So verse 18, he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger barns. And there I'll store my surplus grain, and I'll say to myself, I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. You look at those verses and you find someone who is laying out for us the heart of what drives so much of what we do financially. For some of us, it's the security of having more grain in the barn. So if something happens in my life, the more I have, the more security I have. For some of us, it's the fact that the more grain I have, the more useful it can be in providing the pleasure I need. I can sell some and get more stuff. It's pleasure, security. There are these two competing interests that really fuel the discontentment that we deal with and that drive us to unproductive actions. And so you've got this guy literally living this out for us. But at the core of it, at the core of what Jesus is getting at here is this assumption that this guy is driving under. And I just call it the mentality of more. The mentality of more. It goes like this. It's just the assumption that it's all for my consumption. That's a line I stole from Andy Stanley a long time ago. He says it's a definition of greed. I would disagree. I think biblical greed is literally translated have moreness. Have moreness. And so greed is about, more. And so what is it? What drives then that whole idea of more? It's this assumption that it's for my consumption. If you struggle with this, Charybdis is going to own you. It's kind of where it's going. And because this guy has this assumption, he moves in some really unproductive directions with his life on this. This stokes that quality for him. In fact, I would say this, that is going to drive you right past the safeguards that God has put in our lives to keep us from where a lot of us have gone. God literally has, like safeguards and direction arrows and, a guide to help us around the Charybdis effect to keep us from driving in. And this assumption moved this guy around all of it, or through all of it, and straight into the heart of where he didn't want to go. If you go to the book of Leviticus, you can find at least a little bit of insight into where these sort of guidelines start with his life, and it helps you break down what it is he's missing here. It gives you some context on this story. Leviticus 19, 9 through 10, God's given these guidelines. He's saying, okay, you're going to harvest, but here's how I want you to harvest. And there's a reason for it. Charybdis is real and present. And so many of us, our lives aren't happy. The more we have, the less happy we've become. That's the real problem. Whenever we equate money and happiness, it's like, yeah, well, we all know people who have so much and they're not happy. We all know people who have even more than they have, but their family doesn't even want to be around them. Oh, let's get real for just a second, right? They throw a party, ain't nobody coming. Their kids want a vacation with some other family, and they're sitting there stupefied by it going, what do you mean? They're going camping in Missouri. We're going to Disney World, We're going to go tour Europe. Yeah, I'd rather play in the dirt with them. What? Is not that true? Well, we get it. We get it. And Jesus is going, yeah. And the reason why our lives move in that direction is because there are these safeguards we blow past. And notice the way this safeguard works in his life, because it works in ours too. He says, hey, if you're a farmer, here's how you harvest your crops. This guy's harvesting. Problem is, he did it the wrong way. Notice what's missing. Us read it and you can kind of play. He says, when you reap the harvest of your land. It's God saying, this is how you do it. When you do it, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Right? Don't go to the edge of the field. Why? Why? Well, God says, all right, well, let me go a little bit more. Do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for who? Help me. Yeah, leave them for others, for the poor and for the foreigner. I'm the Lord your God. And you look at these verses, and what you realize is that God has built in this mechanism called generosity that works in our life in a powerful way to release the pull that the Charybdis effect has on our life. God has built this mechanism in place by which when we give, we say, you know what, money isn't my master, stuff isn't my master, it's not sucking me in, it doesn't get to call the shots just by awareness and disconnect, it doesn't get to run my life, I run my life, right? And when we give, immediately when we get, right, when we give first, because notice that's what's left on the field, then everything else happens. God's going, hey, look, generosity starts now. With this guy, he blows right by it. What does he do? He runs under the assumption that he needs every last grain that he's harvested. Why? So that he can provide for himself the life beyond anything he could have ever wanted. That's what he wants. And I need every last grain to do that. And God, the God who created him, sitting back going, you think that's going to make your life feel squared away? It's not. Charybdis is going to own you. You missed it. You missed it. It starts with generosity, and that generosity is going to bring joy into your life. It's going to get happiness started in your life because you're going to notice what comes of what you give. And then, right, then you go from the field, right, then you go from the field to the barns. Barns he had before were just fine, man. You're going to save back some so you got peace of mind. You save it so that you have. The Bible speaks of being wise with our resources. So put back so that your family can have. And then do your living. Then do your living with what you have. Question comes, well, he had this surplus. What do you do with that? Good question. Good question. How's it go? To whom much is given? Spider-Man. All right, I'm back. So maybe this, right? You've got this whole progression that kicks into place, right? You've heard it before. I picked it up. North Point, a lot of churches say, give, save, live. On what's left. I like it that you can connect it to a story that helps you notice the way it plays, and more than that, help you see the strategy that moves you around Charybdis. It isn't about that connection between money and happiness. It's never about more. It's always about the way we steward what God has given us, or the word management. And I'm sure you've picked that up as well. And then Jesus goes one further. And this is him putting an exclamation mark behind it. This is him letting you know just how serious he is about our making sure that God has our heart instead of money. Because we all know that phrase, where your money is, there your heart will be also. Or I should put it this way, been to church for a while, you've probably tripped across that. If you're here for the first time, this next part probably isn't going to resonate with you as deeply. But I'll say this, if you're a follower of Jesus, if you call him Lord, if you're a part of Central in our ministry, this next part is where Jesus looks you in the eye and he speaks some words about as forcefully as I've heard him say it. And so we'll try to match our conversation around it with that same sort of authoritative directness. Because this is where Jesus says, no, it matters. No, it matters. This isn't just about the life I want from you. This is about the life I want for you. This is about the life I died to facilitate in your life. And I'm serious. Jesus is saying about, whenever I say that no one can serve two masters, you're either going to serve God, you're going to serve me, Jesus says, or you're going to serve, and we would think he'd put in the word Satan. No. Or money. Either it's going to have your heart or I am. And if it has your heart, it's going to destroy you. I came to give you life, and so here it comes. Here it comes. I say all that just to prepare you. And with this, we're gonna really speak to those of us who called Jesus the Son of God, who follow him as Lord. Because there's this guy who's bought into this idea of more, right? I've got to have it. That's what's going to be at heart in my life. Generosity has no place. I'm not giving any time for giving. I'm not creating any space in my life or cutting back anywhere else so that I can increase my capacity to give. And Jesus looks at this guy, right? He says, oh, you call me Lord, Lord? And he looks and he says, if this is you, you fool. You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you prepared for yourself? This is how it'll be, he says, for whoever stores up things for themselves but's not rich toward God. I mean, we all know that truth. If you're following Jesus in the Word of God, right? It's who I'm talking to right now. Right? Where your money is, your heart will be also. And God wants our heart. Right? And so with this passage, he's notching it up a step or two, and he's calling us to stretch ourselves in this direction. And it's more than call. This is a command. This is a challenge. This is a warning. He's calling us to be rich toward God, to value him more than anything else. No, it's not all there for my consumption. I've been blessed to be a blessing. Because I value him, I model his heart, period. And to value him, to use our earthly riches even to show how much we value the God we serve. So here he's given us this warning, but it's also this awesome invitation for us today to see Jesus and the mission of Jesus first and make that first in our lives, to trust in God to provide for our needs, to not store up stuff and look to that for security. No, to say, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give. I'm going to give because I trust you. It's this awesome invitation. Move to a point in our lives where we take seriously this mandate to seek him first and his righteousness. Next section over, just keep reading. We take that seriously and we do this. And so here, an invitation, we've got this invitation for us to ask him today to free us from the love of money and trust God to provide our needs. To begin to give regularly. And it's maybe that last point I really want to emphasize because it's where he's driving us today. And so I'll just say it. There's a very real danger that those of us in here today who call him Lord could have him look back at us and go, you fool. You fool. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're great. You got good intentions. The problem is there's no follow through. And in fact, the follow through is in a direction that is going to rip your life apart. And he's going to call us that simply because we haven't taken seriously the fact that giving isn't just about dollars, it's about discipleship. And discipleship is about what God wants from us and for us, period, said and done. And so here's my question. Like I said before, if you call him Lord and call Central your home, this is a question you got to let set and sink into your soul. And it goes like this. Some of us, it's a checkpoint, right? Some of us, it may be a kick. But I figure to match the tone he has, it's got to be this direct. So do you currently, right, you call him Lord, do you currently practice regular, disciplined, sacrificial giving? Do you currently practice regular, disciplined, sacrificial giving? Is this at the core of who I am? Are you teaching your kids to do that? Are you teaching them to do that? Because here's the thing, with this warning comes that invitation to move in that direction today. Really, where we're going to stop today is right on that point. I don't want to flower this up or dress it up. I just want to leave us with that point of conviction, the knowledge that the God who created us cares enough about us to speak directly with us about this area where he's going, if you act normally, if you go toward more, it will mess up your life. But if you manage it in my direction, you're going to find the life I want for you. And so are you currently being faithful here? And if not, what needs to change? What needs to change? One plug and then I'm done. I'll say this. We currently have in our church what we call Financial Peace University. It's a class that helps you work through it. If right now you're just going, oh, gee, I'm so convicted I can hardly breathe, I'm a wreck here. God's probably speaking that, and I'd rather hear the well done, good and faithful servant. Maybe this is where you start. We'll have it going. Look it up, and let's get serious about this. Let's get serious about this. Not seeking after more, but seeking that management that gives us life. Won't you pray with me? Father God, thank you. Thank you for a moment to hear from you, to seek you in this. God, may we seek faithfulness in this, and God, may we find the life that you want because of that. It's in your name I pray. Amen.